great.
Okay. And I'll watch the chat for you. So the recording is going and the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. All right, thanks everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedules and joining during lunch or even in the morning for a few of you. I really appreciate you, taking the time and joining this presentation and learning about Power BI. Just a little disclaimer that I did want to mention is I know a lot of you are Power BI gurus, right? But this is more of a friendly presentation for people that are just getting started with Power BI. And it's not necessarily a hands-on workshop, but kind of, walking through the high-level overview of what the product is, how it works, and what it looks like. Before I get started, I did want to introduce myself. So, as some of you may know, my name is Jasmita Yechuri, and I am a rising fourth-year student studying computer science and business at USC. Right on. I'm originally from the Bay Area, so I was born and raised and, have been in California my whole life. And right now I'm actually in Seattle. So I'm actually a TPM intern in the Power BI team in Microsoft, actually. And my manager, Jay, is actually in this meeting too. So shout out to him. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. And I only started learning about Power BI over the past summer, which was like 3 months now. And it's been like an incredible journey. So I'm really excited to share what I've learned from my peers and hands-on experience and hopefully spread some of that knowledge to you guys and, share all of that information that I've learned over the past few months. Awesome. So I have a few things that I wanted to go over, and in this agenda, there's like four main things. So I'm gonna provide a background of what Power BI is, who uses it, why people use it, and the opportunities that actually come with it. Then I'm gonna dive into how to get started, collecting data, organizing the data, and then eventually preparing to create reports, create visualizations, and have those dashboards ready. Then I'll go into some of the tips and tricks that are not so apparent, but will help with building reports. And for those that are especially new to the product, these shortcuts and hacks are not explicitly taught like the first time around. So I'll make sure to not gatekeep that information and share all those tips and tricks. And then I'll wrap it up with some of the resources, getting into like learning more about the product, opportunities to be more involved in the Power BI community, like this session, and then going into what else you could do to learn about Power BI outside of this presentation. Awesome. So why don't we get started? We'll look into what Power BI is and its background. So what exactly is Power BI? There are a lot of users that have definitely heard of it, but don't actually know what it is, right? So at its core, it's Microsoft's business intelligence tool. And it kind of helps you transform raw data into more of a meaningful insight through interactive reports and dashboards. So Power BI can connect to a wide range of data sources. And I'll kind of go into this more as we go on into the presentation, but you can collect data from Excel files, on-premise databases, to cloud services, and then integrate that data that is coming from hundreds of different data sources very seamlessly. And then once you're connected, then you can, clean, transform that data, and then create your visuals, just like this dashboard, right? And then to turn something that's very complex and can be very noisy and messy to something that's more clear and concise is honestly the selling point of Power BI and how easy it is to use, right? The opportunity that comes with Power BI is being able to recognize patterns that may have been hidden before, but now you can use those interactive dashboards to get deeper insights and learn either the good or bad of certain organizations. So it's a tool for data preparation, visualizations, distribution, and management, scaling from just like simple reports to very complex analytics, right? But mainly helps make fast and fact-based decisions. So who's really using this tool and like who are making these decisions? Why is it so valuable? So now I'm going to kind of segue into Power BI is more than just for its like data team, right? To make sense of data doesn't just limit to the data team, right? Take data analysts, for example. They dive into these data sets, uncover the trends, create metrics, and then they're able to tell a story behind these numbers. Then there's business intelligence teams. They find these dashboards that bring together data from different sources and then are able to give clear and a single view of the business, right? And then there's financial departments where they use Power BI to kind of track budgets, revenue, and expenses so that they can spot issues or any sort of opportunities much more quick, right? And then their teams in operations, marketing, and sales, and much more different sectors where they use Power BI to kind of monitor performance in real time. So whether it's campaign results, supply chain efficiency, or a sales target, they get insights and act on it really fast. And lastly, there's executives. They really rely on these dashboards to get a high level view of the business. They can see the key metrics in a single glance without having to really dig deeper into what's going on themselves, right? So, to summarize what's going on and who use Power BI, it honestly empowers everyone. From analysts to executives, they're able to explore, present, and share insights that dive deeper into the business opportunities. And it's not just like a reporting tool, it's a way to make data actionable and impactful based on the insights. All right. So on top of what we just discussed about where, executives and people that actually use this product, how does it benefit? Who actually benefits from this, right? So Power BI delivers value in all sorts of levels. Let's start off with organizations. It means better decision making and sharper performance tracking. Leaders aren't honestly guessing or making their decisions based on, oh, feelings or I don't know, I feel this sort of way, let's go this way, right? They're acting on real timely insights. For teams, it speeds up reporting. So instead of juggling like spreadsheets, teams can pull up these live data into dashboards instantly. So that means more time for analysis and less time of manually copying and pasting the data. And then for customers, it's translating to better services and experiences. Because again, decisions are made based on real time, not from guessing or estimates or feeling some sort of way. It's all about the data. Now let's talk about the opportunities that come with Power BI and that open up as well. It boosts productivity by automating like the whole process of reporting tasks, right? Before Power BI was even created, people had to generate these reports by manually collecting all the data from several sources, cleaning it, and then building those visuals, right? Something like this would have taken like weeks, days, months, and much more. So now with Power BI, it's definitely saved time in terms of productivity as well. Next, it comes into upskilling the workforce. As data literacy is becoming a really big part and very valuable, more people are able to learn about what the data is and share certain decisions confidently. And then it creates entirely new roles like BI developers, data analysts, and Power BI administrators. And perhaps the most important one here is it shifts the focus from simply just gathering that data to really telling a story with that data and shaping your strategy in a certain way so you can convince and influence people during decision making processes. And before I dive into more of this information, I kind of wanted to share a personal story about how Power BI is very impactful to individuals in all scales, right? So, my sister, who's in med school, had a classmate who was also part of med school, but realized it wasn't really in their path. They finished their bachelor's, they were studying biology, but all of a sudden, they decided it wasn't their fit and they were honestly confused. They didn't know what to do, right? And this was during COVID. So then they started exploring and they ran into COVID-19 reports. And guess what? It was actually created by Power BI reports. So they were super excited to see how you can dive deeper into how many people had cases in a certain day or the new reports in a certain region, right? So this was really exciting to them. They wanted to dive deeper into what Power BI is and how they can even create those reports. So they spent a lot of time learning, grinding, and it wasn't long before that they created their own portfolio and dashboards that really showcase their analytical skills and problem-solving ability based on like raw data. So this hands-on experience with Power BI opened new opportunities and completely gave them like a different like life path, right? Like career path. They eventually became a consultant for their own business and were helping small businesses and individuals make sense of their data and drive those business decisions. So what started as an uncertain time turned into a new career path, and now they work in a field full of opportunities that they could have never imagined to come alive, right? So kind of just shows a great example of how learning tools like Power BI can empower people to pivot careers and create new exciting possibilities, right? And them coming from a biology background, like you don't need to come from a specific major or anything, or like a certain discipline to build these reports. You're anyone and everyone can learn to accomplish creating these reports and these dashboards. So it's just an inspiring story, and I just wanted to share what can come with just learning Power BI. Awesome. So now going into how you can really access Power BI. Power BI comes in three main versions, and each is designed with a different purpose. There's desktop, there's service, and then there's mobile. So Power BI Desktop is the main authoring tool. You use this to connect to data sources, transform that data, build the data models, and then create reports and visuals. It's installed in your computer and is ideal for building and testing reports before even sharing them to people. Then there's Power BI Service, which is kind of like the online version, right? So this is the cloud-based platform where you can share, collaborate, and distribute reports. And you can publish reports from desktop to service, where you can schedule these automatic data refreshes, get real-time data, and then give other people access to these dashboards. So it's also where you can have a workspace, set permissions, and collaborate with other people across different teams. And then lastly, we have the Power BI Mobile. Essentially what this is, it's a mobile app for iOS and Android users that let you view and interact with reports and dashboards on the go. And it's kind of perfect to check metrics in real time, get notifications, and start connecting with data wherever you are. So kind of in a short summary of what these three entail is desktop is for building, service is for sharing and collaborating with others, and then there's mobile, which is a way to stay connected on the move, on the go. And so together, they're making a full end-to-end analytical platform for people to access dashboards and create reports and all that fun stuff. So let's move into how to get started with Power BI. We'll dive into what Power BI looks like and each of its different levels of pages, right? So you need data. So where do you get this data from and how do you import that data? All right. So imagine you're a detective trying to solve a mystery that's happening, let's say, in the library. But instead of clues, your clues are coming from different places, right? And Power BI in this case is your super smart assistant that helps you gather all that data and all the clues into one specific space. So the step one to start off is getting data. And over here, we have this page that's showing what Power BI kind of looks like, but it's like a snippet. So there's a get data button. So you click on this get data and you get a whole bunch of options. You'll see that there's like Excel, databases, SQL server, and a whole bunch of other options, right? So think of all this menu kind of like a warehouse to go into and get all of your clues to solve this crime. So to summarize, it's essentially an area where you can access data from on-prem databases or cloud services or even the web. Now, this part gets a little bit more complicated of what I'm going to be talking about. So let's say you have connected to the data, and you're given two options now to bring in that data. You can either import it or you can use direct query. So import is kind of like taking the evidence, the physical book, home so that you can start highlighting and taking notes. So you have full access and full control of what this data is, and it's much faster. Then we have direct query, which is more of like having the live feed from the crime scene, which is happening in the library, right? And you're interacting with this physical crime and where you're doing everything, where everything is always up to date. So you're kind of limited to what you can do with that data in terms of transformations. So once you pick and you sort of source, Power BI will show you a preview of the data, kind of like a sneak peek before you grab it all, and then you can choose which tables or sheets that you actually want to download, which goes into the segue of this part two of what you do, which is essentially transforming data within Power Query. And this is honestly where all the magic happens. In terms of magic, this entails like being able to clean the data, remove any sort of duplicates, merge tables, or change formats, right? And the importance of this is to make sure you're not taking up a lot of space, and so that data is being processed much faster. So basically, turning messy clues into something that you can actually use and actually transform. Once you collect all that data, you can essentially use the close and apply over here, and then boom, all of your data is cleaned up and is now ready to look into the visuals and insights. Now you can really uncover the true story of what's happening with the data and what's been hiding around it. So remember that Power BI isn't just a tool, it's kind of like your detective partner that's helping you solve these crimes and analyze the underlying clues and everything. One other analogy that I wanted to give here is that think of Power Query as, raw ingredients. And Or here, let me step back a bit. Think of the data as actually your raw ingredients, and Power Query is kind of your kitchen, right? You can clean, chop, mix, remove, cook all of that data into ingredients so that you can serve a more of like a delicious and digestible meal, and gain insights into your Power BI report. Okay, so now let's peek behind the curtain, and this is essentially the table view. Think of it as like the backstage of your data, where you can actually see the raw data and um, see its glory in its true form. So why should you even care about this table view space, right? Well, first I wanted to mention it gives you the ability to really inspect your data. You can spot those missing values or errors or weird outliers that are messing up with your reports. So in this case, you can kind of see in the column of class, there's like empty spaces over here. So essentially you can see what's causing any sort of problem when you're creating reports or all those fun stuff, right? So next, it also helps you understand relationships. Right here, you can also see all the tables that are being provided, so you can also understand which columns exist in each table and figure out which one connects to others and have an overall idea of what's mapping to each other. Then comes the fun part, being able to create calculated columns and measures, right? If you want to know the profit, right? Easy. Just subtract the standard cost in this list from the list price into a new column, right? And you get a total new metric for these visuals. So table view is kind of a playground for building these building blocks, essentially. And then finally, Table View also provides the ability to sort and filter your data, allowing you to really explore subsets or check specific rows before putting them into your report. So think of it actually like zooming into a specific piece and looking at the particular evidence before getting it out there. And so I wanted to emphasize again, what's the point of table view? It gives you quality control of what's going on. You can make sure the data is clean, structured, and ready to really tell a story with your visuals, right? So without it, you can't really solve any sort of mystery because there could be a lot of dependencies that are missing. You want to make sure you have the full picture of what's going on. All right. Awesome. So here is what we have so far, right? So we discussed about data sources, like connecting to data sources, and that could be from Excel files, databases, or other online services. Then we talked about the Power Query Editor, where you can clean and transform that data, and then the table view briefly. So now we're moving on to the next part, which is the model view. But before that, it's kind of important to learn a key concept and learn what semantic models are, right? And essentially, what semantic models are, the best way to put it is like they're the brain of Power BI reports. So think of it like a big network collecting all of the data and transformations, relationships, and the calculations into what makes your actual report work, right? As you can see over here, we have a lot of different tables set up, and each of them have relationships. And I won't really be diving into what these relationships are. There's different levels of cardinality where there's many to many, one to many, all those fun stuff. But model view is its own space where we could be sitting here for an hour and discussing about that another time. But I leave it at a high level overview of what it is, right? So let's look at this data, right? Let's pretend it's a map of cities, and you can see the tables and how they're essentially connected. Right. And so in your semantic model, it's pretty solid in terms of the data is clean. You can look at the relationships that are defined and the calculations that are adding up into building these reports. So without really having this sort of foundation that's connecting all of the data together, you won't really have the set stone. So an example to really explain this is your report would look like a house where it's actually missing the walls, right? It would look nice, but it won't really stand if you don't really define those relationships. All right. So right now we see a smaller view of like a model, right? It's pretty simple, just a few tables. But you might also be wondering what's going on. And there are actually reports that could be much larger and where they range from hundreds or thousands of tables and you're defining relationships and you honestly don't know what's going on, right? What are you looking at? What relationship is going on between these tables? So if you're consuming a report from someone else, where do you even start? So there's actually a solution for this. It's called Model Explorer. So think of it like the table of contents, right, for your semantic model. So while model view shows the visual map of your tables and relationships, Model Explorer is a text-based tree view that lists everything that you need neatly, right? It's indented and you can break down into what the measures are, the relationships are, and the tables are. So you can see this in a side pane over here where you can click into data and then model and all that information is shown. So you also might be wondering again, why is this relevant? And like I mentioned previously, model data data comes in different versions and there could be a model with dozens or thousands of data tables, right? And it could get really messy. So Model Explorer actually lets you quickly jump to that exact area that you need. So over here, I'm highlighting this relationship, and it takes me exactly to that certain relationship where I can then rename items, hide unnecessary fields, and keep my model organized throughout the whole process. So another analogy to discuss about over here is model view is kind of like your city map showing you all the streets and intersections, but model explorer really gives you that direction of every address and city, right? You can instantly find which building or area that you need to go to without actually like navigating through the whole system and wandering around. So whenever you're getting started with a model and it looks super complex, Model Explorer is the secret weapon of staying organized and efficient to see what's going on. All right. So before we go into the tips and tricks and like the visuals, I did want to touch upon this other page of Power BI, which is the DAX query view. Essentially, before I even talk about this, let's discuss about what DAX is, right? And DAX is its own part again. So I'll just be giving a high level overview, very complex area and very, very useful. So let's talk about what the brain is behind Power BI's advanced analysis. It's DAX. So that stands for Data Analysis Expressions. So if you kind of used like Excel before and the formulas that are part of Excel, you'll feel right at home, right? DAX is kind of designed to work with relational data and large data sets, so it's way more powerful when you're making these calculations, right? So with DAX, you can kind of create calculated columns, measures, and even tables to do this power advanced analysis. So basically, it's like define metrics and calculations that aren't already in your data source, and you can use DAX to do that. So let me give you an example. Maybe you have the data with sales and revenue, right? And you want to do a little bit more in terms of the calculation, right? You can find the profit margin in that case, or any other metrics that you need. Just manipulate that data so that you can create a new column to get those numbers and values. Now, there's a relatively new feature called the DAX query view, and this is essentially a sandbox for DAX. You can write and run DAX queries directly against your data model, test those calculations, explore tables, and debug results, all without affecting your actual report visual. And like I mentioned, DAX is a very in-depth and a very technical area, and it does require a deeper discussion. However, today I'll leave it at what I discussed about. And yeah. So the key takeaway here is DAX is a logic layer, providing like deeper insights to your data and kind of transforms this raw data into key performance indicators so that your business can look into it and really understand what they care about. Yeah, it's truly a game changer. Awesome. So going on to the report view in Power BI Desktop, you can create visualizations, also known as visuals on the canvas, right, of report page. You can choose which visualizations to build in your report, and it's ideal to keep it on the same page with related data so that consumers can really understand those insights. Power BI is like a low-code solution, which means essentially you can drag and drop data fields directly onto the canvas. And you can even change between visuals just from a simple click in the same field and add or remove any sort of data fields on the visual as well. One of the most valuable features in Power BI is its interactivity between visuals. So consumers can select different data points in the visual and see how it really affects the other visuals. So for example, over here, we see new hires based on gender. So if I click into the female section, right, it should essentially switch up this chart where it's only based on female data and looking into the female that are full-time and now part-time of new hires. So really interactive and lets you dig deeper into the data that you have. And just wanted to give a basic visual overview because Power BI does offer a variety of built-in custom visuals to really help you tell a story effectively. So there's kind of these 6 key areas that I wanted to discuss about, and it starts with the basic charts. Basic charts are essentially an area where you can compare and track data. So this includes column, bar, line charts, pie charts, and combo charts, which are essentially line and column charts. Then we have the distribution and comparison, where you can understand the spread and really look into the relationships. So this is the scatter charts, tree maps, waterfall charts, and funnel charts. So essentially starting from something big and then diving deeper into the root cause, right? And then we have tables and matrices, which give you the detailed data views. So table visuals are raw data in rows and columns, and then the matrix visual is pivot tables, which give you a summary of what the data is. Then we have maps, which give you the geographical insights. This could be build maps, shape maps, or even the Bing maps. And then we have card KPIs, which highlight key numbers that you want to stand out. So it could be a single number that you really wanted to show. It could be the revenue, right? There are also KPI indicators, multi-row cards, and much more. And then lastly, we have the advanced and custom visuals, which kind of dive deeper into decomposition trees, Q&A visuals, where you can ask questions in natural language, and much more. All right. Awesome. Okay, so now we're moving into the really exciting part. Some of the coolest tips and tricks in Power BI visuals. These are little gems that I was able to come across and also learn about. And as beginners, you might miss this the first time, but once you know them, they can really save you a ton of time and make your reports look much more incredible, right? And so I'm super excited to show you these because they're honestly game changers, and you'll even wonder how you live without them. So, with that being said, I'll be going into some of these tips and tricks and explaining why it's useful and kind of giving a 30-second clip of like how you can apply it. So to start off, we'll start off with the most basic and simple trick here. So in Power BI, you have the option to multi-sort on a table. Now, most people know about where you can click on the header of the table and it'll automatically sort, right? But there's also a multi-sort option, and you're not stuck just looking at one sorting priority where you can then layer on top of them. So I have an example over here that I'm going to click through, and it's essentially showing that no sorting is being applied. And the solution here to get multi-sorting is essentially clicking Shift and left mouse click. So boom. Now both of them are both category and sales amount are essentially sorted, and you can see accessories and bikes were coming along. Sales amount is also sorted, and you can even unclick them to undo what was just happened, right? So we're looking at, we looked at how the sales amount started off with the highest to lowest, and you can really gain more knowledge from that, seeing which city had the most sales amount and which category had the most sales amount. So very insightful. So based on that information, I also wanted to explain why this kind of really matters. First, it helps you really prioritize within groups so you don't have to view everything and have a lot of data being thrown at you. Second, it reveals patterns that you might have not been able to notice before, right? It's a simple shortcut where you can do the multi-sort, and it gives you honestly a cleaner overview and lets you story tell without having to jump back and forth between the different sorts. So next time you're using Power BI, make sure to remember single sort kind of tells you a story, but multi-sort tells you the whole part of the story. Clicking in here. Awesome. So now let me take a moment to kind of go into the second tip over here, right? You're looking at a chart and you might be wondering what is exactly happening behind this chart, right? What's going on, right? And that's when this shortcut is very helpful. Being able to switch a chart into a temporary table. So why is it very valuable? Well, to begin with, it really helps you look behind that curtain. You can see the exact data points that are powering this visual overall. And in plain rows and columns, you can really get that data validation of checking those numbers before creating any sort of visual. It also helps you really dig deeper into the chart, summarize things, and look into it in full detail. And if something is going wrong or looks off, troubleshooting is the best way by using these tables, right? It's much faster to go into table view and understand what's going wrong in this table or data. So honestly, it's a space for you to really look at the raw numbers and X-ray vision and really build a whole new visual without having to flip between the chart and a table and then show them and then switching it back. Very quick and very concise. So here's a little demo of it. So you can see that I have all these material and the values, right? And then all I have to do is Alt-Shift F11 and you're given the table view and you can switch back right away. And you can also access this through a different entry point of clicking the three dots. But again, this is a shortcut of just using your keyboard. You don't have to click, switch between your keyboard and clicking. Right. So moving on to the third short tip is essentially this matrix visual, which is showing us like the perfect hierarchy in our data. But one thing you'll notice is that Power BI actually gives three different layouts. So let me start this video over here and you can see that you can go into the format section and there are layers within this matrix and you can go into layout and there are options for compact and outline. So when we first look into outline, what we see here is it removes that indentation that we saw in the compact layout, right? Compact layout was essentially indented so subcategories sit right under the parent categories. In this case, in outline layout, it removes that indentation and displays that hierarchy where it's separating the columns of color and category, offering a more cleaner and organized view of the data. And then lastly, over here, we have another option, which is tabular. So tabular is essentially the same thing where it's separating the levels into its own column. So think of it, it's like clean and side by side, so it makes it easier to really compare across all the levels horizontally. So again, you can see the color and category in separate columns. And then now moving on to the fourth tip over here. It's very small, but very helpful. So it's a little sneaky little trick over here, but makes you look like a Power BI pro essentially. So you know when you're trying to move a visual around and you're using your mouse and it's almost in the right spot, but then boom, it jumps to a little too far and it can be super frustrating. And then you sit there holding your arrow key to, you know, really move it pixel by pixel. But there's actually a faster way to move that visual pixel by pixel, essentially, and it's a game changer. First, it lets you perfectly align it, and second, it's fast and you don't have to keep switching between the mouse and the keyboard. And it lets your dashboard look polished and professional. And all that comes with is just clicking the shift button with the arrow. And it's much faster than you think. And over here, I have this video starting off with just using the arrow. You can see it's slowly moving, and then we'll change up the pace now, where I used shift and arrow, and voila, it's moving much faster, and you can make your dashboard look much more polished and professional if you could do it much faster, right? Okay. And then now I kind of rallying on what I just talked about. There's also a trick of fast alignment, right? So let's look at a fast way to make your reports really clean and professional with the alignment tools. You've probably seen these buttons that are like align left, align right, center, distribute horizontally, distribute vertically. And maybe you thought, oh, maybe I can just eyeball it, right? But here's the thing. Eyeballing can be a little dangerous, right? If you misalign it, it could be very sloppy. And if your audience notices that, it's not the best look, right? And then there's another part to this. Alignment tools can honestly save you a lot of time. You can select multiple visuals and at the same time, click one button, and then boom, everything is aligned right away within seconds, right? And consistency honestly builds that trust. So if your visuals look really, really organized and neat, people subconsciously believe the data is much more polished. So next time you're running into a messy layout, skip that drag and guess game. Just use the alignment tools to really distribute how that data is looking like. So kind of go into how to really use this tool. So I have a pie chart here. Essentially, I'm moving it around, right? And I have another table that I want to align with. You can kind of see these red lines or dotted lines that are kind of saying that you're aligned to the left, aligned to the right, or aligned to the center. And then I can select both the tools, go into format, and align the second image based on the first one. So right now, this pie chart is aligning based on the center of the first visual, which is the table. So super cool. And then a super valuable trick, right, is being able to lock your objects. Honestly, I didn't know that this existed before, and I've always ran into problems. I would create a dashboard or create some sort of report, and then I accidentally nudge it and it moves the whole thing. And that tiny shift essentially messes up something that was super clean and a professional layout. Of course, you can use, undo, but sometimes that doesn't work, right? And the best way is to honestly lock the object and freeze it into place. You can still interact with the report and do whatever you're doing, but you don't have to worry about accidentally resizing it or editing it without really wanting to do any of that. So here's how it kind of works. And I provide 3 different visuals over here. And I wanted to also start off by aligning all of these visuals. So going off with aligning it to the left, making sure it's distributed evenly, and then looking into how I could essentially lock these objects. Over here, you just go into the view, lock the object, and there you go. You're not able to really move it. And you can just uncheck this box and go back to how things were. So as we're coming towards the final few tricks over here, one of the key and most powerful tricks in Power BI is being able to copy your data from a visual. So sometimes your audience doesn't really want to see that chart. They want to see those raw numbers. So instead of building a whole new table or exporting just that data set, you can copy the data directly from the visual. And here's why it's valuable. It's quick for sharing. It's data validation and analysis flexibility for other people to look into. And it honestly provides transparency where it makes your reports look more trustworthy and people can really see the underlying numbers. So here I have a matrix of all this data, and I click into the 3 dots where I can export the data into any sort of CSV file. Then I have a lot of data over here in different colors, and I just want to look into the color of black. So I select that region, click in copy, and copy that selection. And now I can open Excel and copy that data. And there you go. You can see the raw data and do any sort of transformations and move it around and play with it in Excel itself. And lastly, this is one of the most important tips that I came across during my internship or just learning about Power BI. It's being able to take slicers or multiple slicers and being able to apply all of them and clear all of them at the same time. So when you have multiple slicers on a report, like region, product, and salesperson, changing from each one individually can be really, really tedious. So there's an option to just apply all with a single button, and essentially it applies all of those slicers. And there's the same version of clear all where it's clearing all those filters and slicers. So this honestly saves time, reduces errors, and improves the overall interactivity that's going on. So here's a little quick demo of it. I have 2 different slicers going on here with color and category. And right now I'm able to filter it one at a time and look at that detail. So now if I want to insert this button slicer, I can go into the button section in insert and essentially apply all these slicers. So I'm selecting what I want to filter by and simply just control and click. And there you go. Now I'm left with those 2 colors and 2 categories. And I can even switch between the categories and still apply them again. So a very useful tool and essentially runs the same way with the clear all filter. And then now with coming into like 10 minutes, I just wanted to discuss about resources available. To start off with, I wanted to talk about the licensing. So, if you were interested in anything that was going on today and just want to learn more about how you can get started and the tools, in terms of licensing, we have a free plan where you can create rich interactive reports that put visual analytics at just your fingertips, right? And then there's a Power BI Pro version where you can access Power BI reports, share it with people, and publish your own, right? And you can even access other people's reports. So very useful. And then there's the enterprise version and the embedded version where you can embed it into any sort of tool or place that you want to do. And then I wanted to also talk about the community. If you want to be more involved, there are blogs that are written all the time where you can hear ideas. And if people are facing any sort of problems, there's a thread that goes into it where you can discuss about any sort of solutions or problems that you're facing. And Reddit is essentially the same thing over here. And there's a Power BI Reddit thread as well. And in terms of tools or tutorials that make you want to learn even more about Power BI, Guy in the Cube is the best place to start. It goes into Power BI and Fabric. And then if you want to be even more involved and join workshops, FabCon is being hosted, and it's Microsoft's Fabric Community Conference where it's bringing in experts and developers and business users focused in analytics, business intelligence, and AI within the Microsoft Fabric ecosystem. So you get to attend all sorts of events, and this year it's in Vienna and Austria, so during September 15th to 18th. And I can send more information if anyone's interested in that. And then before wrapping up, I also wanted to talk about the Microsoft certification. Since it is Power BI's 10th birthday, it is on sale right now. So there's a 50% discount voucher that lasts until August 31st. And I just wanted to mention this because if you are someone that wants to look into more of the data analysts, BI developer, Power BI developer, or just want to be more nuanced in creating reports or dashboards, this is the best place to start. The certification has several modules, and it's definitely a time commitment, but teaches you a lot in terms of preparing data, modeling the data, visualizing the data, and then deploying and maintaining those assets. It's a 100 to 120-minute test where there's 40 to 60 questions, where it's multiple choice, multi-select, single select, drag and drop, and being able to list the process of steps. They give you a scenario and you dive into what step and process you would take. And then one other call out that I did want to mention is if you do get certified, it's valid up to a year and you can renew it 6 months prior for free. And this test can be taken online or in person, and it's fully proctored. Awesome. So this is pretty much what I had, and I just, wanted to thank you all once again for taking the time out of your busy schedules. I know I was talking a lot, and there was a lot of information for the past 54 minutes, 50 minutes. And I also wanted to thank Kevin for letting me host this session and my manager, Jay, who's also on this call, that gave me this opportunity to put myself out there and talk about Power BI, even though I'm relatively a new user to it. So it's been a great opportunity and I've learned so much and I know there's much more to learn. So super happy to be part of this community.
Well,
And
thank you. Thank you for
yeah,
doing it.
of course, of course.
Oh,
And if
there's
you
your
would like to
LinkedIn.
connect,
Everybody
feel free
connect.
to. This is my email and LinkedIn as well. Awesome.
Wonderful. And I think you were saying you wrap up your internship this week?
Actually, tomorrow's my last day, so I'm super glad
Nice.
to have been able to do this before I leave.
Well, good, good. I think everybody enjoyed it. There was only one question in the chat, but I think it goes pretty deep, pretty quickly. I don't know if you want to attempt um, to talk about it. The question is there an AI insights button in Power BI? What LLM does it use?
You got you. I definitely think this is a question to discuss about offline. So I'll definitely draft up that answer and maybe give that information, maybe not. If not, my manager Jay will also be able to provide more information about it. But yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on between the AI insights, what Copilot could do within Power BI. So I mean,
Exactly.
it is much deeper than just a couple minute answer. That's why I kind of
Yeah.
preface that. So yeah, definitely. So if let me look back to
So, Kevin,
um
if you want me to chime in for a sec.
sure, Jay. Yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
so I mean, you're right. It's a much bigger story than, just 2 minutes. But this area of like AI is so much in flux that we are also like reevaluating what we're doing here. Now, recently, what we've seen is that our existing built-in tools in our data transformation layer to do um, like sentiment analysis and text classification just didn't cut it anymore. So those are like slowly on the way out. And we are investigating how we're gonna work and add easy to use AI insights in all of the layers of Power BI and Fabric using various LLMs. And I cannot disclose which LLM we use, but of course, if you follow the news, you know that we have a strong partnership and collaboration with ChatGPT. So it would be part of that kind of like sorry, of OpenAI. So it would be part of that kind of stable. Um, but yeah, there's much more coming here in terms of like how we weave AI into all of the different parts of Power BI and Fabric that some of which Jasmita just discussed.
Yeah. So definitely more to come. So stay tuned on that. Well, besides that, like I said, I don't think I saw any other questions. Has anybody got a question they want to put out on the recording?
Yeah, Kevin, it's on, and especially since we're recording, Jasmine, since you said it's your last day tomorrow, you can speak freely. How is Jay as a manager?
He's amazing. I don't even have
Sorry.
to take a second to think about that. He's honestly the best manager I could ever ask for. And I've genuinely had an amazing internship. So being able to do this too is an opportunity for myself to grow. So he's been great and he's been very supported throughout the process.
As we expected. We all like Jay.
Yeah, and Jay did
I
not
think
pay me to
Amin
say
was
that.
setting you up there. So
Man, you guys are making me blush here. And by the way, for the record, I did not pay her to say that.
all right. Anything else? Or I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording. I see a post from Fernando says turn it off now, so he must want to say something. The world will never know.